All right, folks, welcome to the Monsters, Madness, and Magic podcast. I'm your host, Justin, here with a quick word before we dive in. Now, in this episode, I chat with actor Geraint Wyn Davies about religion, improv, having fun on the stage, his memories filming Forever Night, and more. A little caveat, there is a brief bit of interference on his side. The audio doesn't cut out, but the video kind of skips a little, but it does clear up, so no worries there. If you're listening on your podcasting platform of choice, please leave us a review if you'd like to help the show grow. And if you're watching the video on YouTube, please like, comment, subscribe, and all that stuff. Anyway, without further ado, here you go. All right,
Yeah,
Geraint, take us back in
yes,
time.
Justin. Justin, how are you?
I'm fine. Take us back in time. You're a youngster. Are you a book reader, fort builder, troublemaker, or all of the above?
I like reading books about forts being built and people causing trouble inside.
So, when you were growing up, what sort of books did you read? Did you have maybe a favorite author or genre that you lean towards?
Oh gosh, well, growing up, you mean very young or teenager or young adult?
Uh, the earliest you can remember reading.
Well, we were in Wales then, so I was reading books in English and in Welsh, and they would have been pretty easygoing books. My dad's a preacher and my mom was a teacher, so they would have had a pretty eclectic gathering of material.
Mm.
To be quite honest, I wouldn't remember a title at all. Actually, I don't remember the last book I read, which was only yesterday. But no.
So, you mentioned your father was a minister. Do you consider yourself religious still?
No, I consider myself spiritually interested, but
Mm.
I would not necessarily organized religion. I wouldn't say. My dad just turned 96 last week, and Mom's 92, and they are so cool and hip and non-invasive or whatever that is. They've always been very, very cool about what other folks do.
Right. Not to jump ahead, but recently I spoke with Mr. John Kapelos, and he was curious. He was curious as to
Yes.
whether or not your father was still alive because he was reminiscing how much he liked him. So I'll
Well,
pass that
I love
along.
John, and one of my regrets is that John and I are still not in touch regularly. That's too bad, but that just lines going different directions. But I love John Kapelos. He's an amazing human being and a fabulous player, a great partner in a show.
Would you say that either one of your parents were artistically inclined at all? Do you think that's where some of your roots lie in regards to those attributes?
Well, I would not in any. Well, dad plays piano. He writes music. He writes poetry. He does that. And his preaching is without question the most engaging preacher I've ever seen. He's just fun. Doesn't do it as often anymore. But he was in church just Sunday, and they announced that he just turned 96, and there was a lot of hooting and hollering and good old camaraderie on that. But they encouraged. Well, I went to a boarding school from early on, so I guess a lot of stuff came from just that environment, and also because you had so much time and so many different people that you could be influenced by. And but yeah, no, they weren't artistic in that way, but they are creative. They're creative, but not necessarily artists. And my son likes to write music, and he does all sorts of things. So it's been passed on down through the lineage.
So what was the catalyst for the move from Wales to North America? Do you remember that being a culture shock?
It was a culture shock, but it was mom and dad. Dad mostly, I'm going to say, a lot of what probably I say is all revisionist anyway, because I can't remember that far back. But Dad just wanted to explore new worlds, new countries, and that's why I'm in Thailand. I continue to do that. I carry their torch for them,
Mm.
and he was very happy to do so. We went back to Wales all the time, almost every year after we came over to Canada. Well, actually, we came to America first, to Chicago. Full disclosure, place outside of Chicago called Berwyn. So, but then we went back to Wales and came back to Canada. And it was a huge culture shock for my brother and myself, because, all of a sudden, two little Welsh boys are in Grand Valley, Ontario, and they have to play ice hockey. We don't know anything about ice hockey. And anyway, so there was a lot of stuff, but people were great. It was great. And then going to boarding school, it was a whole different world anyhow. So was good.
So, what sort of records were spinning around the house when you were growing up? What kind of music did you like to listen to?
Oh, well, now then, we listen about mom and dad would listen to Max Voice, who's a Welsh comedian, and some of that. Dad always liked his organ music. He always liked the accordion and things like that. But my brother and I, ooh, we were right there with the Circle singing Red Rubber Ball. These are the songs I'm remembering coming to Canada. Oh gosh, if my brother was walking by now, because we have a property in Thailand, I could ask him and he'd remember everything. But we listened to all the guys who were playing in this mid to late '60s when we were kids and early '70s, all of the popular gang. And we went to see a lot of concerts too. My brother's a big concert goer, and he's 14 months older, so not a whole lot. And we'd go see a lot of things together, like all the quiet bands like Led Zeppelin and Alice Cooper. Those guys,
Oh, so in regards to music, did you ever pick up an instrument or anything like that, or have any inkling to join
Yeah,
bands?
I write a lot for the piano and stuff like that. It's mostly for my own interest. But over the years, you do things like you have a funky television show and a group of people want something that you do extra. So I wrote a charity album and we raised money for a charity. And I used to write a couple of tunes for the program Forever Night
Hmm.
with Fred Mullen,
Yeah,
who was
yeah, yeah.
our musical great guy. Uh, Anyway, yeah, it was. I've always enjoyed it. It's always been. Actually, I'd probably do that if I wasn't an actor. I'd probably do it.
I gotcha. So when you think back to formative films and TV shows that you grew up on, what comes to mind?
But we had so many cheesy ones. But I take that back because they were very very influential. Things like Combat and Twilight Zone, and of course, I Dream of Jeannie. All those things, and also because we only had 3 stations, you watched whatever they gave you. But the Carol Burnett Show, stuff like Dick Van Dyke, Dick Van Dyke Show, all those shows back then. But my brother and I, when we were watching it, a lot of it was, 12 O'Clock High, or I'm making up titles now, but the Rat Patrol, stuff like that, and for film, because we didn't see a lot of films until we were older. We hardly ever saw films in Wales. Maybe Battle of Britain or something, or later on Sound of Music and stuff like that. But yeah, it wasn't until later that the film, the appreciation of film came into play.
Hmm. My personal favorite episode of The Twilight Zone is The Howling Man. I don't know if you're familiar with that one. Do you have a personal favorite episode?
I can't pick one out right now. And I'm going to
So,
say the same as yours.
okay, that's a good one.
Same
I
as yours.
promise.
So if anyone asks me, I'll say, just ask Justin. He'll describe it.
There you go. So, this is another question I like to ask everyone, because you never know. What scared you as a kid?
Oh, small spaces, claustrophobia, and heights.
Still to this day?
Oh gosh, yeah. Yeah, I would hate to be in a coffin on the edge of a building. That would just be a bad day. That would be a really bad day.
I can agree with that.
Yeah, I'm not interested. Yeah, not too much else. Our family in Wales and stuff, had farms and stuff, so animals were not a problem. And crowds were never speaking and stuff like that was never a problem because watching Dad do his preaching on a Sunday and Mum being the principal of the school I went to, there was a lot of their presence was there. They were in command of their spaces.
Understood. So do you have maybe a eureka, an aha moment you can point to in retrospect
Well,
where you decided to give acting a try?
yeah, kind of. I used to sit with a church organist. It's a kind of maybe it's a stock one for me, but it's the one I always kind of think of. And because I love music, so I sat with him, and he was in the balcony, of course, of the chapel of the church, and Dad was doing the sermon, and he liked to keep them somewhat short. Personally, if I was an editor, I would have cut them down a little further. But hey, it's semantics. But Dad was telling a story about a cat. I had no idea what he was talking about, but the congregation was falling about laughing, and the organist was kind of laughing away too. And I remember one of his elbows hit the organ and went, which of course got more response. And I thought, there's something I really like about this, but I'm not sure about the sermonizing thing. But I just remember I want to do something like that. And years later, I was in Wales. I was working in Wales, and we went to what is essentially the equivalent of the BAFTA Awards, but in Wales. So the Welsh BAFTAs, let's say. And there was a group of us, I'm going to say 5, and we were all ministers' kids, and they all knew one another, the parents, the preachers. And we decided that that was the platform that they had at that time. And now we, as a group of individuals, one guy ran BBC Wales, one ran a huge entertainment corporation. I was an actor. There was whatever. Everyone had found their voice in the kind of arts or entertainment industry. But because that's our platform, that's our world. Whereas back then, the place for it really was the pulpit. It was interesting. So it was watching Dad and being around. I know we're kidding. Yeah, that sounds weird, but it was great. And I was 7, just before I turned 7.
First time on stage as a performer, and did it go off smoothly?
Oh, I hope it never goes smoothly. One of the things I relish in is the immediacy and the living in the moment of, particularly the theater. No, not even the theater. The television as well, the film. First moment. Well, it was performing in probably a church play, and I had to sing an Italian song. I'm going to blank now. Anyway, I no idea what the words were. It was Italian. I didn't know. So it was a lot of, and I've been doing it ever since. A lot of, trying to make up for it by, happy face acting and carrying on. But nobody seemed to mind. So I thought, okay. So the deal is, as long as you're enjoying yourself, folks will go along with you, I think. So that's the deal.
So would you say that your approach as an actor differs depending on whether you're on stage or on screen?
No. I mean, obviously, technically, yes. But the approach mentally, no. I think rigor, enjoyment, basically it's the work you do before you show up is a lot of it. But also your relationships, the relationships you have with others, unless it's a soliloquy, unless it's a one-man show, which I did for years, and that cast party was about as much fun as a root canal. But it's the relationships you develop. It's I just did a show at the Stratford Festival of Canada last year called Grand Magic. It's an Italian piece by Edoardo De Filippo. And it was fabulous. And one of the reasons it's fabulous, the whole cast was great and stuff, but there was a young actor that I was working with, and our relationship was, his name is Gordon Hill, and just the amount of trust and ego-free, best idea wins, worst ideas allowed, just the idea of you're allowed to think, we're never going to think the exact same thing. So the complete welcoming of new thoughts, new approaches, new things. And that I would say comes to television as well. The one thing about, let's say, certain shows, like one of the first series, well, no, I guess I'd done a couple before, but it was a thing called Airwolf. And just what we did was laugh. We laughed a lot. And then on Forever Night, we laughed a ton. That's what we did. We kind of laughed. And what was great is because the stories were so gothic and so very important in between that angst, things like that, there were a lot of outtakes that, oh, goodness gracious. The fact that we actually got through it was a testament to, I don't know, the fact that it was late night and everyone wanted to go to bed. But no, so your question is about difference in approach. No, it's to be alert and excited, basically just to be excited, to be wanting to be there. The times when you don't want to be there, oh my gosh, that's when I guess that's why you earn your living. But I've got a part of a mantra that I do, and I go, joy and create, integrity and joy in creativity. And I think that's the kind of thing. If you're going to do it, just be integrous and have a joy. Go about it with joy. I don't think it should cause you pain. I think it should cause you thought. Like you have to think about it. You have to work at it. You have to engage, etc. But I'm not a big seeker of pain. I do like my drama either in front of a camera or on the stage. I don't like it in real life. So
Well said. How much character work do you do behind the scenes? Stuff that we may never see as the audience, maybe making a journal for your character, answering some questions you may have personally, or stuff like that.
well, because of the fluidity that I've always sought, I try not to jam anything down. I try to keep everything as fluid as I possibly can. Now, that could also just be because I was a lazy kid and that's the way it carried on throughout the rest of my life. I was also a quick thinker early on, and we used to call it dancing as fast as you can. There's something about that you just have to respond. Okay, there. But yeah, journaling. A lot of very, very good folk do that, and I agree with it for the individual. There's no one way about this. There just can't be, and that's why meeting new people will always be interesting because it's just new. And you never, I don't know about following in the footsteps of anyone. You certainly climb on the shoulders and appreciate that, but following in the footsteps, I don't ever want to copy anyone. Unless, of course, it's a combination of Benny Hill and Jack Nicholson. But other than that, forget it. That's it.
That's a good one.
And if Roger Moore was the Godfather, that's where I've always had Benny, Roger, Jack. Thanks, guys. Anyway.
We're kind of already dancing around this a bit, but I like to ask all actors this as well. To us non-actors, the layman, method acting has sort of become a muddled term, catch-all. But what I've discovered speaking with actors so many years is that each actor almost has their own individualized personal method. Yeah. So what's your method?
Well, I think method acting, the way I would just say it, it's just really finding your truth and your authenticity. So of yourself to that character. So whatever it takes to get that truth, the truth, that's it. That's kind of it. Well, there's an old joke in the theater, of course, that acting is all about truth and honesty, and once you learn to fake that, you've got it made. It's just so cynical, but it is kind of fun. Yeah. Oh, so if your method is to only speak in, if what you want to do is only speak in the Greek dialect and hop on one foot for the entire time, even during lunch breaks and going home in the car, then cool, then do so. But if your thing is to tell jokes, although it's really annoying for the other actors, but up until the moment of action, well, that's what you do. I know actors who do that. I know one actor, I won't say his name because I really like him, but it was really annoying. He read from a book out loud up until the point where the director called action, and then he just put the book down and started, and you're going, what are you doing? It wasn't particularly sharing, but no, it was delightful to be with him. But anyhow, so there's many different ways of going about it, and everybody's own is everybody's own. Of course, you can go to great theater schools who will teach you a technique, and that's cool too. I didn't, so that's one of the reasons I can't speak for those methods, because I started acting professionally at 18 without so-called institutional training.
All right, just hearing you speak about your own work, seems like it's more improv.
Well, it's funny. Okay, so there's an element of improvisation, but not really, because you are working with text. You're working with somebody's ideas that they've spent a lot of time putting down on paper. Yeah, I think that there are probably a couple of actors who, if they heard me say that, they'd call the BS on me, because I do tend to go, well, it's not written in stone. And kind of go, yeah, but you know what? They did work hard on it. So maybe give it a little bit more of, yeah. But yeah, so yes, there's an element of, I'm not going to say improv, but there's, what's a good word? Well, certainly play.
Yeah. Yeah, gotcha.
But then hopefully, and I've traveled a lot. What I've always liked to do is work, but then I want to go and explore and meet people in different situations, different countries, different continents. And so hopefully there's information gathered on those times where it's just information that you can bring to the screen or certainly to the theater, which is what I've been doing mostly in the last little while. And I like big ideas. So big ideas. And failing, fabulous. If you can't fall flat on your face, then I don't know what you're doing. You gotta. I think you gotta go big. Gotta go big. Hit a homer.
Can you recall a bit of direction or advice that you've been given from a director that has made a role or a scene click for you?
Often, it's great to have a guide from outside your own head. There's a piece that I really like. I was not getting along with this particular director, and I wasn't finding the role at all. And it was really hard. It was a difficult piece. But he said, Geraint, hey, dude, I know we're not getting along, but you're not the hero. You do not have to be the hero. And that's all he needed to say. Because I was playing for I don't know, to be the hero, to be liked, to be yum, 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 yum. And I just completely threw everything out and started from scratch, coming at it from a place of not knowing the answer. And that was really, really helpful. And it ended up working out very well for everybody. But that's because I had this image that I was stamping on everything I was doing. Really sad, really pathetic, really not deep thinking on my part at all. But anyway, worked out really well. But just don't play the hero. Don't have all the answers. Do not have all the answers. The guy does not have all the answers. So you don't need it. It's interesting.
Mm. So how did the transition from stage to screen ultimately happen for you?
Well, this was back in the 70s. So did we know any better? I don't know if we knew any better. I think I mean, I started in the theater. I was in Canada, and there was the CBC, which is the Canadian Broadcasting Commission. It's a Canadian national thing. There was a CTV, which was Canadian Television. Anyway, there were 3 stations. And what you do is you go and audition when you weren't acting in the theater, and hopefully someone would give you a gig. I mean, all the great shows like The Littlest Hobo and all those dog shows and things, you'd want to become on those shows. You just do them. And I think really you sucked for the first few years and then tried to suck less as time went on. I don't know. It was part of it. We were all doing it. And there was as I recall, again, just make it up, but there weren't that many actors my age because I was fairly young at that time. And so if there were 6 roles and the other 5 guys got the other 5 roles, well, there was 1 left. So you got it. So you went and, played that part. It's not as if you were particularly oh my God, we got him for the gig. They're kind of like, is there nobody else? Okay, well, we'll give it to him. So it just was trial and error and learning from the folks. Well, that's the other thing. A lot of people who were directing and things like that had come from, let's say, the BBC, who came a lot over to Canada, and they were directing the stuff we did. Multiple cameras, but not. They were all tied by huge cables. And did a cop series, which was with those cameras, and you're doing a chase scene. Well, of course, the chase stops after you run out of cable, which is kind of hysterical. But I think it truly is just learning as you do it, listening as much as you possibly can. It was great. I wanted to go back to theater. The scenery is slightly harder to chew. So in the theater, so it's better for my digestion.
Right. So just speaking on Forever Night for a minute here, when you think back to the audition, do you recall it being a typical audition? Does anything stand out about it? And were you aware of the Rick Springfield, I think it was, TV movie prior to that?
Not at the time. It was an interesting period. It was 91, 92. So anyway, and I just finished playing Hamlet over in Great Britain for 5 months. Oh God, just played it forever. And I was back in Canada, and I had to get out of the house. So, went on a couple of auditions. And one of them was for this show called Forever Night. Well, actually, it wasn't called Forever Night. It's called Knick-Knack. Actually, at the time, it was called Knick-Knack. And I went into the room, and then there were a bunch of people there. But there was one guy there that I found him really interesting. And he said, can you mind drinking blood? And I said, do I like blood? He said, well, you're a vampire, but is it, so I had a stupid question, like, is it human blood? Actually, no, it's cow blood. Okay, whatever. So you just did it and left. Not too much else. I think the second audition was a little bit more, in the flow. So then they chose 3 people to fly down to Los Angeles to audition for CBS, and I was one of them. And did the audition in the room with CBS, and they didn't like any of us. Didn't like any of us. No, they're not right. So James Parriott, my friend Jim was the creator, producer of that program. Jim said, bugger it. And he kind of said, I like you. I think you're the one. Because they decided, and so at this point, I'd seen the Rick Springfield one by the Los Angeles one. And I thought it was really cool, really hip. It was very LA, lots of rock music, and, just it was slightly cooler. But Jim wanted something different, well, for a lot of different reasons, actually. One of them, he once said that the flashbacks in Forever Night, because often in each story, something would have happened in the 800 years that Nick Knight had been undead, or whatever you call it, that would inform the story that was happening in the present day. Because Nick, Forever Night, that became, Nick was a vampire who became a police officer to atone for his past. The show was about redemption, about belief, about religious beliefs, about God, about loss, about loneliness, about lots of different things. But I found the Rick Springfield one really cool, but it didn't have flashbacks and had rock music. We had more gothic music. Jim decided, no, you're my guy. So he got a studio, he got fans, he got, I was in a duster coat, cool, thing up, and the hair doing whatever, blowing, doing acting, all that stuff. And I thought it was really goofy, but it was good, and it looked good. So it looked great. It's just not you in a room with a pair of jeans and a t-shirt. They did up the thing. And then I gathered that the story is that they showed it to the executives, and they said, no, that's it. That guy worked. We like that guy. He goes, well, he just saw you a couple of days ago. Oh, okay. Well, just go for it. So Jim was very instrumental in me doing that, and I wasn't sure about it. It was a vampire show. It's not as if a ton of them had been around. It was before that huge rash of vampire shows. But Jim, before he rewrote the pilot for our 2-part opening, he insisted on reading the Anne Rice. I believe at the time there was only Interview with a Vampire. Could be wrong, but he wanted more of that feel, so that it had more of the kind of seriousness, more of the how much of a sacrifice it is, to not drink human blood all the time. What it is to be 800 years old. Yeah. I'm wobbling all over the shop here, but in any event, Jim rewrote it in a much more gothic-y manner. And also shooting in Canada, shooting in Toronto, Canada, which was really cool. So, and it was good for me because I knew a number of individuals who worked up there. So I got to work with a lot of friends, stuff. But also we got to shoot Toronto as Toronto. And normally, because the show was designed for CBS, it was one of the first shows designed for American network that used Toronto as Toronto, which was cool, just cool, because you didn't have to hide behind it was Boston or New York or Chicago or wherever else. And anyway, like that. And you'd be, because we filmed all at night, which was really tough on the old brain, you'd be driving through the streets of Toronto, and the character had this great 64, 60, God, I could be smacked for not knowing what it was. But anyway, great convertible Cadillac with the wings and you're driving through the streets of the city thinking there's nobody really up here. And, the lights are flashing because it's great. It was a joy. And the crew and cast, crew, everybody, we became a kind of a family because nobody else was up at that time of night. So we were what we had. And I just remember laughter. I remember, of course, there would have been times of stress and things like that. But the overwhelming feeling I get when I think about it was really enjoying the people.
Yeah, and I know I mentioned earlier I spoke with Mr. Kapelos, but I also spoke with Nigel Bennett.
Yeah, well, I see Nigel back in Stratford. I see Nigel often.
And they both lamented the same thing about the show, which they had fun times, but it was the shooting schedule. And you just touched on that, and they absolutely hated it.
Yeah. Well, and not to take anything away from Nigel John, because they worked really hard, particularly John in the first couple of years. But I didn't miss a shooting day for 2 seasons. And that would have been 50, it was 24, 26, 50 episodes. And I never forget it, right? It's all still screwed up, the old sleep schedule. And we started that show 32 years ago. 32 years ago. Wow. 32 years ago, February. Yeah, 32 years ago.
Jeez. Is there an aspect of, obviously it shoots, it sucks doing night shoots all the time, but it is a vampire show. Is there an aspect of that adds to it, just as an actor, an extra layer for you to work with?
Well, even just the uniqueness of it, even just it was great arriving in the afternoon when the sun was still out. And then pretty soon after it's gone, you go, oh, this is the beginning. This is breakfast. Damn. Oh, damn. All right. Well, it got us into a different way of thinking. You couldn't, your day, I used to get home. I'd sit on the front porch because it'd be like 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning. And I'd have the end of the day libation. Oh, that was a good day. And the postal worker would come and be dropping off the mail, and he'd see this pathetic dude drinking at 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning. Like, no. Seriously, I'm just working. It's not. No. Couldn't convince him. He thought, what a poor guy. It was fun. It was fun, and I'm glad it was there. I'm not one to live there. I appreciate all of it, but I don't live in the past, as it were.
Right.
And plenty of interesting things, children and countries. I've lived all over the place, and other gigs and stuff show up, and you have to engage on those. You can't be, playing in the house you just sold. You got to move to a new one because the new owners are going to really hate it. Get out.
Yeah. So I got John's perspective on this, basically asking him what he thought happened between season 2 and season 3, because even to this day, it's hard to find season 3. And he basically just, detailed how he thought the show was shifting and breaking up the Nick and Skanky aspect, basically.
I think there was a lot of politics involved. But we moved from CBS to syndication to USA network. And whatever happens with the powers that be, with histories between this, that, the other thing, with demographics, I remember being a big thing. They were skewering towards something younger, which is when Ben and Lisa came on the show. Yeah, it was different. It was really sad to see John go. There was just, it was kind of that way. You were used to, where's John? John? But then again, we all had that. John, Kath, Deb, Nige, myself, Natsuko, Gary, Blue, Lisa and Ben. Everyone had everyone enjoyed each other's company. So I was very sad to see John go.
Yeah. And
It didn't feel right for the first little bit. And then, of course, as I say, then you have to get on with it. You're doing it, so you have to get on with it.
I'm going to get crucified if I don't ask you this because obviously, when I teased that you were coming on the show, I had a bunch of Forever Night fans just run up on me and ravage me. But
Hi, Forever Night.
have you have you had any contact with Miss Deborah Duchesne since the show ended? Do you know if she's okay? Because no one's heard from her.
I gather Deb's okay. I haven't seen Kath. I haven't seen Deb. I haven't seen John. I see a lot of Natsuko. Now, that's fantastic. I love Natsuko. And I see a lot of Nige. I don't see Gary much. And I don't see Blue. And I'd love to see those guys. Anyway, it's just weird how your satellite, No, I haven't seen Deb. No, I have not seen Deb. And that's also Deb wasn't there.
Yeah.
Last year. She came back, but no. And that was strange, as I recall. Can't remember why. Anyway, so you miss, because you're a family, right? You're a family, and suddenly one of the most important, well, both in John and Deb's case, family, they're not there. What's going on? So yeah, I remember being a little, I was not settled with those decisions for whatever they were. I never did find out exactly what happened, because I thought it was probably better not to weigh in and then go and try to carry a big stick and walk into a room. You can't do anything about it.
Exactly.
So the cool thing is, when you come up with an idea and at the time you think it's brilliant. Now, I'm not sure Forever Night's the best name, but I remember when they were changing the name from Nick Night because of Nickelodeon, because Nickelodeon was coming in and Nick at Night and stuff like that, and they weren't sure about that. And there's a bunch of reasons. And it was early on in the first couple of episodes. And of course, I like word plays and things like that. So I offered Jim the title Forever Night. And he goes, that's the one. And I'm going, yeah, great. But I'm not 100% sure that was the killer title. I'm not sure.
Out of all the projects you've worked on, stage, screen, what have you, which would you consider the most challenging? Is the one that in particular that you lost a lot of sleep over?
I don't lose sleep over it. I find ways to enjoy it. I went through a period where I find it difficult to go. The business wasn't thrilling me much. The doing, I was enjoying, but the stuff surrounding it just became a little empty, maybe. Just a little empty. One of my favorite things was playing Cyrano de Bergerac in Washington, D.C. Cyrano was great. All of them, all the classics. I mean, that's the great thing about one of the things being in the theater. You can do a new play, you can do a classic, and they all bring their own set of challenges.
So this is a question I like to ask everyone as well. Have you ever had an experience you would consider supernatural or paranormal?
Every time I look in the mirror in the morning, I wonder how the heck did that person get into my life? Yeah. But it was in France, because that's where I was just living up until January for the last few years. And yeah, it was a very distinct feeling of an aerial presence that felt as if it came down and just went down and through. It was very interesting, very odd. Didn't dwell on it. But I do think we have, of course, I believe that there's a lot of, well, there are more things on heaven and earth, as Hamlet says to Horatio. I mean, you can't possibly know everything. And there's a lot of power and entity and stuff that we share, and just we should embrace it rather than be scared about it. The negativity factor, I try not to bring too much into the world around me. So anyway.
Well said. Yeah, the video's back, by the way. I can see you again. So best acting advice you've received, and who gave it to you?
I think it was that bit that I was mentioning earlier. You don't have to always be the hero. Or and you can take that for any whatever you're playing. You don't always have to be that. And not every, I'd say to myself, not every, let's say we'll use hero again. Not every hero is the same. Not every so and so is the same. You don't have to fit into that little box of what maybe when we were watching a Twilight Zone or something that they were telling the story about that. Make it your own. I don't think copying is a good idea. I think failing. I think if you don't try to fail, that's. I think I say that because I'm really, really good at it, and I should say I'm used to it. So
Just did you think? Would you say it's fair to say, just as an artist, that you prefer the stage to the screen? Take pay and everything out of it, of course, obviously.
oh well, preference. Different periods I enjoy doing. I enjoy doing the television film thing quite a lot, and I was directing there for a number of years, and I enjoy doing that. And then, of course, when you direct yourself, you don't listen to a word the director says. It's a joke. Sorry. But there were times where I'd be, doing directing during the day. So you already have a 12-hour day, and then have to go and be an actor in a night shoot, and you think, whoa, okay. And I know people do that, but I found that really, really hard. I think I became disillusioned a little bit with the business. I think I mentioned it just before, with the business of, well, the whole, it just shifts. It shifts, and it takes a while to catch up occasionally. And now I'm loving both again. So, but the theaters, you got to spend a lot of time with folks and explore a lot. You have more time. That's all. You just have more time.
Do you think acting for so long before you tried directing helped you kind of navigate how to work with actors on the other side of the camera, I guess?
Yes. And I will also say that you say somehow less. So you're trying not to micromanage, because you know that the freedom to explore is an interesting one. And if it's not in the guidelines of the story, then you'll go in and give a little nugget of wisdom. But normally it's a lot, and particularly on series television. You're asking particularly for continuing characters, regular characters. They live that thing. They know it. You're really there to keep the stories on track, and hopefully get a camera move or two that's okay. But it's not about that. Really, it's capturing the story. So, and the one thing about that was cool about Forever Night was, because it was a vampire show in 1992, we were doing all sorts of camera angles and stuff and colors and things that hadn't been done a lot of. So it was in the newness of it all. And of course, we were still shooting on film, which means, you don't get to instantly play back and see everything. You have to trust the folks who are brilliant at what they do, like the DP and the camera operator and the focus pullers and stuff. And so you say, okay, guys, what do you think? Do we have it? Yeah, I think so, Geraint. I think I missed the frame over here, blah, blah. You go, that's great, because I really like the performances. So you can move on. Whereas now you get to see everything immediately after it's shot. So you're, I don't know, you just don't get to, not that word trust is wrong, but you don't get to ask the advice of your fellow filmmakers. I really enjoyed that part. I really enjoyed the working together. The idea that there is no way that this is about any one person. Not a hope. It's about a lot of folks who get together. And I'll tell you, a positive room is a positive room. It's good.
Just since you mentioned Forever Night again, just wondering, how was it going from just in one episode you may be doing a Shakespearean style scene, then in the next scene, it's more modern, contemporary. Was that challenging or fun?
Fun.
Is it?
It's absolutely fun. You think about it, when we're kids, a kid can change, well, can go from crying to laughing his head hysterically at a bunny hitting a pole. I don't know, whatever. It's, you're able to just shift. Your mind is limitless in its invention. So yeah, I know we've got more technical things. I get it, but the idea of being able to just shift genres and stuff, and that's what we do too. I'm going to be the cowboy today. You be the sheriff. You be the outlaw. Notice how I dodged the other story that you could have got here. That was good. We'll pull that one out. Whoa! Wow, good there. Anyway, and then you suddenly become an alien, and blah blah. You just do all sorts of things. And if you find a stick, that's one story. And then you found a balloon. Well, that's a different story. And then the two become one. Anyway, I think there's. Yeah. So to answer your question, no, not difficult. Completely fun.
Mm.
The only concern, of course, is how the wig is fitting and whether it's on frontwards or backwards, and some of the things, like when I would play a cowboy, I thought, well, what this footage is going to do is make sure that I'm never cast as a cowboy in another film. So okay, there you go. Well, I'll know that. We all have our strengths and our not such strengths.
So, are you familiar with the actor Armin Shimmerman?
No, I don't know Armin.
He
Tell me what Armin would have done. Maybe I'm just being thick.
Star Trek: The Next Generation. He was Quark.
Oh yes. Sorry, I beg your pardon. Of course.
So he said something to me that I really like asking other actors now. There's been a handful of occasions throughout his career where he knows he did this play on this date and he knows that he was on stage, but he cannot remember the performance because he was in such a zone. Have you ever had that experience?
To go into a zone, yes. But you know what? There are elements during anything, and they are technical elements mostly, that you have to embrace. So there is a moment where you have to come out of that zone just for safety, for lots of different reasons. And also it depends on the nature of it. The story about who was it playing Hamlet? Was it? And I think it was a modern setting. And the actor picked up the phone and heard the father's voice on the phone. I don't want to say names because I just might be making one up. But anyway, and he was so in the world of the young man who lost his father that he heard the voice at the other end of the phone. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, that is very cool. Do you remember the role that you were playing that you were in the zone, quote unquote?
Hamlet.
Mr. Davies, not going to keep you all morning here. Just to put a bow on this thing here, what's on the horizon for you that you can share without getting in trouble?
Well, no, I could just show you the horizon over here. It's beautiful. I'm doing a play, a piece from 1848 called London Assurance at the Stratford Festival this summer. That's kind of what I'm doing now, for the most part. And so I'm doing that, and it's funny. Well, let's put it this way. We certainly hope it's going to be fun. And it should be. It has farcical elements. It has a new comedy. Back in the 19th century, it was a new comedy, kind of comedy. But there are certain elements, of course, that people will have fun writing about the inappropriate nature of certain things, which kind of makes me giggle, feel great. Because I know, inappropriate stuff, blah, blah, blah. But come on. I do think that if we don't keep these guys going upwards, we're done. Keep it up. Yeah. Oh, it's going to be a lot. So it's London Assurance, a great company. That'll be fun. So it's all summer at the Stratford Festival. So I'm basically hanging out in Thailand with my brother, and then I'm going to Vietnam and Laos, and then I'm going to see my kids in California, and then I'm going to go to New York, and then I'm going to go and start work.
Wow, busy man.
No, it's all yeah. The thing is, I only have a pair of flip flops, so I don't know. I'm going to have to invest in a pair of shoes somewhere.
Well, Mr. Davies, I really appreciate your time. Maybe one of these days down the road, we'll get you and John on together, and we'll all hang out.
I'd love that.
That'd be awesome.
Any excuse to see those guys and gals.
Thank you, sir.
Good.
I
Take
appreciate
care,
you.
Justin.
You have a great rest of your day.
Okay, bye.
Bye bye.